They all thought Murphy, Pam Bondi's golden retriever, was merely there for comfort until the unthinkable happened. In a packed courtroom in Jacksonville, Florida, as the trial raged on, Murphy did something no one expected. Without a bark, without a growl, or even a twitch of an ear, he rose from his relaxed posture beside the defense table. With quiet determination, the golden retriever trotted across the wooden floor, weaving between rows of chairs, and in a surreal moment, sat directly at the witness stand in front of Malcolm Behrens, the prosecution's star witness. At that very moment, the atmosphere shifted. Judge Gregory Watkins, who had been mid-sentence, froze, his mouth hanging open as if struck by lightning. The court reporter's fingers stilled on her keyboard. And even the bailiff, normally unflappable, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. Behrens, caught off guard, stiffened. His previously confident demeanor crumbled as he gripped the edge of the witness box. I need a minute, he muttered, barely audible. Before anyone could fully process what had just occurred, the courtroom erupted in hushed gasps and whispered speculations. No one knew whether Murphy had been trained to detect deception or if this was a setup orchestrated by Pam Bondi herself. But one thing was clear. Something in that moment had shattered the carefully constructed facade of the trial. 2 days earlier, the scene had been entirely different. The parking lot behind the Duval County Courthouse in Jacksonville was already jam-packed before 8 a.m. Satellite vans and press cameras were set up like antennas, capturing every early morning moment. Inside Courtroom 4B, the air was quiet but tense. Pam Bondi, known for her razor-sharp legal acumen and steely resolve, had entered the courthouse through the rear security entrance with Murphy calmly by her side. Clutching her briefcase in one hand and loosely holding Murphy's leash in the other, her face was set in determination. A passing Officer Tran greeted her cheerfully. "Morning, Ms. Bondi. Got Murphy with you again, I see." Pam nodded politely, though there was a hint in her eyes that today was not a typical day. At the defense table sat her client, Dominic Rincelli, a regional development director from a powerful investment firm whose fraud allegations, totaling nearly $12 million in manipulated asset evaluations, loomed large over proceedings. Despite the high stakes, Dominic's anxiety was palpable as he fidgeted in his chair, his nervous foot tapping like a metronome. Pam's reassuring presence, and even Murphy's silent companionship, seemed to anchor him amid the storm of legal uncertainty. Back in Courtroom 4B, the tension built steadily. Malcolm Behrens, the prosecution's key witness and former VP of internal audit at a major firm, had been portraying himself as a reluctant hero, forced to expose the corruption that had plagued his organization. His testimony was critical, yet something in his story felt too smooth, too rehearsed. Pam Bondi, with years of courtroom experience and an instinct for detecting inconsistencies, had sensed that Behrens was hiding something. She had noticed it during pre-trial depositions. Slight discrepancies in his timeline, subtle hesitations when describing key events. And then, during his live testimony, everything unraveled as Behrens answered a question about a disputed meeting where Dominic allegedly approved false financial reports. Pam, without a word, tapped her heel on the wooden floor, twice, clean and deliberate. In response, Murphy slowly rose from his spot and, with an air of quiet authority, trotted over and sat down at the witness stand, directly in front of Behrens. The sight was surreal. The entire courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Judge Watkins, caught in mid-sentence, blinked in disbelief. The once confident Behrens now stuttered, his voice trembling as he blurted out, I wasn't supposed to say anything, but I was pushed to change the timeline. I didn't want to. It wasn't my idea." His words, delivered in a broken whisper, exposed a truth that shattered the prosecution's carefully curated narrative. The fallout was instantaneous. A collective gasp spread through the gallery. Reporters began typing furiously, capturing every reaction. The judge, struggling to regain control, announced an immediate recess. Bailiff cleared the courtroom. Counsel to sidebar now. As people filed out in a slow, almost surreal procession, Pam Bondi remained seated, her expression unreadable. Murphy, ever the silent sentinel, returned to her feet, and Pam gently patted his head, a wordless gesture of solidarity and quiet triumph. The revelation that Murphy's calm intervention had triggered a confession from a star witness sent shockwaves far beyond that courtroom. In whispered corridors and among hurried press conferences outside, questions began to circulate. Was Murphy somehow trained to detect deception? Had Bondi orchestrated this moment as part of a larger strategy? Or was it a bizarre, unexplainable coincidence, one that had cracked the facade of a trial built on half-truths? As the day wore on, further inquiries revealed more unsettling details. Malcolm Barons was later forced to admit under oath that he had, indeed, been coerced into altering his testimony to protect high-level executives. His confession, once buried beneath layers of legal jargon and institutional pressure, now emerged as the linchpin of a rapidly collapsing case. The prosecution's narrative, meticulously constructed over weeks, began to crumble. Dominic Renzelli's case was dramatically reduced, and whispers of additional indictments swirled in hushed tones among legal insiders. Amid the chaos, the incident had already ignited a firestorm outside the courthouse. Social media exploded with hashtags like #DogDetective and #GoldenRevelation. News vans crowded the entrance, and cable news channels replayed the moment repeatedly, each broadcast scrutinizing every nuance of that silent, yet earth-shattering intervention. Legal analysts debated whether the presence of an emotional support animal in a federal trial was a mere quirk or an unforeseen catalyst for truth. Amid it all, Pam Bondi's reputation transformed. No longer seen solely as a relentless prosecutor, she was now a symbol of defiant integrity, a reminder that even in a system rife with corruption and cover-ups, the truth can emerge in the most unexpected sources. For Pam Bondi, the incident was deeply personal. Raised in Dunedin, Florida, her childhood had been filled with the gentle melodies of church pianos and the steady guidance of a mother who instilled in her the importance of speaking truth to power. Over the years, her legal career had demanded a hardened exterior, but that day, as she watched Murphy's measured walk and heard the shattering confession, she felt a resurgence of that long-dormant passion for truth. That evening, as the courthouse doors closed behind the departing figures, Pam sat alone by the window, Murphy resting his head on her lap. In the quiet after the storm, she read a heartfelt message from a supporter, a reminder that when silence is broken by the courage to speak, even the smallest voice can catalyze monumental change. In the days that followed, the impact of the trial reverberated far beyond the confines of the courtroom. Reporters, legal experts, and everyday citizens debated the true nature of accountability and the balance between ethical behavior and legal permissibility. The incident spurred a wave of public discourse on the need for reform in how courts handle testimony and ensure that personal bias does not undermine the search for truth. Emergency ethics meetings were held in Capitol Hill corridors, and a bipartisan motion was proposed to re-examine the safeguards in place for protecting whistleblowers and holding public figures accountable. Pam Bondi's golden retriever, Murphy, who had done nothing more than walk calmly into the witness stand, became an unlikely symbol of that emerging movement. His quiet act had shattered the carefully maintained silence of a corrupt narrative, proving that sometimes the most profound revelations come not from loud proclamations or stage theatrics, but from the simple, unassuming truth of one being who does exactly what is right, without fanfare. As the nation absorbed the fallout of that day's events, legal pundits declared it a watershed moment, a turning point that challenged not only a single corruption case, but also the broader system of power and accountability. And as viewers across the country discussed the implications on social media, one message stood clear. Truth, when spoken plainly and courageously, has the power to turn the tables, even in a courtroom. So, if this story moved you, if it made you rethink what it means to stand up for the truth, leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from and which moment resonated most with you. And remember, subscribe to the channel for more stories that challenge the boundaries of law, ethics, and the quiet heroes who remind us that even the smallest act can change everything. Oh, 3 Minnie, hi.